What happens to the global energy system when missiles begin crossing the Gulf on the first day of a regional war? Within 24 hours of open hostilities between the United States and Iran, multiple Gulf states reported being struck by Iranian drones or missiles, and senior Iranian officials, including Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, were confirmed dead. Nearly one-fifth of the world's oil supply moves through the Strait of Hormuz. The question now is not just who wins militarily, but whether the architecture of Gulf security can survive this shock. If the conflict expands or drags on, the consequences will not be limited to battlefield exchanges. The Gulf's long-standing security formula could fracture. For decades, stability rested on three assumptions: American military predominance, managed rivalry with Tehran below full-scale war, and functional coordination within the Gulf Cooperation Council. A sustained confrontation challenges all three simultaneously: energy markets, maritime insurance rates, sovereign borrowing costs, and regional alliance patterns could all shift within weeks rather than years. To understand the stakes, you have to go back to 1979. Iran's revolution reoriented regional politics, replacing a pro-Western monarchy with a theocratic republic, skeptical of American power and wary of Gulf monarchies. The Iran-Iraq War in the 1980s militarized the Gulf and drew in external navies to secure shipping lanes. After 1991, the United States entrenched itself as the primary security guarantor, expanding bases in Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, and the United Arab Emirates. Tensions with Iran never disappeared, but they were contained through deterrence, sanctions, and intermittent diplomacy. That equilibrium began shifting over the past decade. The 2015 nuclear agreement temporarily reduced tensions before its collapse in 2018 revived confrontation. Meanwhile, Gulf states recalibrated. In 2023, China brokered a Saudi-Iran rapprochement, signaling that regional actors were hedging rather than aligning rigidly. The UAE maintained commercial and diplomatic channels with Tehran. Oman continued quiet mediation. Qatar kept lines open across rival camps. This was strategic ambiguity by design, aimed at reducing exposure to shocks. Now that ambiguity is under strain. Iranian retaliation has reportedly targeted sites in Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the UAE, Bahrain, Kuwait, and Oman, including facilities linked to US forces as well as airports and ports. None of these states had launched attacks from their soil at the outset, yet geography placed them within range. The message was deterrent signaling. Regional proximity carries consequences. For Gulf capitals, the dilemma is immediate: align more openly with Washington and risk deeper involvement, or distance themselves and risk security guarantees weakening. The Strait of Hormuz sits at the center of this calculus. Roughly 20% of global oil consumption and significant volumes of liquefied natural gas pass through that corridor. Even limited disruptions can move prices sharply. Insurance premiums for tankers rise within days of escalation. Energy importing economies in Asia watch closely because Japan, South Korea, China, and India rely heavily on Gulf supply. Short-term price spikes might increase revenues for producers, but sustained volatility complicates long-term diversification strategies tied to mega projects and foreign direct investment. Inside the GCC, cohesion is not automatic. Saudi Arabia and the UAE traditionally emphasize deterrence capabilities, though both invested recently in de-escalation. Oman and Qatar prioritize mediation and communication. Kuwait balances quietly. A prolonged war could either expose these different instincts or push members toward deeper missile defense integration and intelligence sharing. The outcome depends on whether leaders interpret the crisis as a competitive moment or a collective threat. Another variable now enters the equation: leadership change in Tehran. The death of Ali Khamenei and several senior military figures creates both uncertainty and potential recalibration. Iran's political system blends elected institutions with clerical oversight, but the supreme leader holds ultimate authority over defense and foreign policy. A successor may consolidate hardline continuity, emphasizing resistance and deterrence. Alternatively, internal elite bargaining could produce a leadership inclined toward tactical de-escalation to stabilize the economy and manage sanctions pressure. Transitions in revolutionary systems often reshape tone, if not core doctrine. Consider two plausible scenarios. In the first, the conflict intensifies, maritime incidents multiply, and energy flows face intermittent disruption. Gulf states deepen military coordination with the United States while accelerating procurement of air defense and drone countermeasures. China increases diplomatic engagement to safeguard energy imports, presenting itself as a stabilizing broker. Russia leverages instability to expand arms sales. The region edges toward bloc politics, and hedging space narrows. In the second scenario, back-channel diplomacy gains traction. A new Iranian leadership signals willingness to compartmentalize confrontation and restore limited deterrence boundaries. Gulf states use their communication channels to mediate de-escalation. Shipping stabilizes, prices moderate, and the crisis reinforces the value of diversified partnerships rather than exclusive alignment. The security architecture evolves but does not collapse. The broader geopolitical implications extend beyond oil. If Washington's military involvement deepens while domestic political bandwidth tightens, Gulf governments may seek conditional alignment, relying on US defense cooperation but widening economic and technological ties with Asia. Beijing, deeply invested in Belt and Road connectivity and long-term energy contracts, cannot remain indifferent. Moscow views turbulence as strategic opportunity. Europe worries about supply chains and inflation. Each actor recalibrates according to exposure. There is also a structural question about deterrence credibility. If Iranian strikes on Gulf territory become normalized, regional states may reassess missile defense integration, early warning systems, and civil defense preparedness. Defense budgets could rise at the expense of social spending. Sovereign wealth funds might adopt more conservative risk profiles. These are slow-moving adjustments, but wars accelerate timelines. None of this unfolds in a vacuum. Domestic opinion matters. Populations across the Gulf have grown accustomed to relative stability and economic modernization. Prolonged insecurity challenges that social contract. Governments must balance visible security cooperation with preserving autonomy. That balancing act becomes harder under sustained external pressure. Ultimately, the first day of open war has already altered perceptions. The Gulf's model of managed rivalry, external security guarantees, and economic diversification now faces a stress test. Leadership transition in Tehran adds a layer of unpredictability that could either harden confrontation or open recalibration. Much depends on whether decision-makers prioritize escalation dominance or strategic restraint.